talk about it all. Soldiers in the schoolyard while 1,000 lawyers break the law. Presidents deny it, you won't hear it on the news, but the writings on the prison walls, all them fascists bound to lose.
Welcome. I hope everybody can see me here. My name is Ashaki Binta, and I am one of the founding members and coordinators of Women United Against Genocide. And really appreciative of everybody being here tonight and having us have the opportunity to delve in and look at something that we all have in common right now, the attack on sovereignty, the attack on self-determination of peoples, the attack on our basic human rights and democratic rights, democratic small d rights that all human beings have. And so it's important that, we check in and, maintain our level of consciousness and understanding about the dynamics of these imperialist attacks that are taking place both internationally, but internally in the U.S. as well, from the standpoint of the internal colonies and organization, that level of oppression that people are facing. So we're very, honored tonight, to have our speakers here. And, I want to say that the importance of, ongoing resistance and education is something that, we're all called upon to do in this period, to unite with each other. This is what people are calling for internationally. And we have to be calling for it, among the oppressed nationalities inside the U.S. and the working people across, all of these, heinous, oppressive repression, attacks and imperialist crimes that are being perpetrated against us. So thank everybody for being here, and we want to have a good discussion tonight, develop, even deeper understanding of, what we're facing, and support each other and continue to work, educate, and stand together. So it's an important period. We don't know what's coming in the months ahead, but, it's getting more serious, by the day. They're coming out more and more, with their intentions and to eliminate, any rights to self-determination and justice that we're facing. So with that, I'm going to welcome everybody, and our comrade Kathleen will facilitate the discussion tonight and introduce our guests, and I'll come back and introduce Anne when it's appropriate. And thank everybody for being here. So let me turn it to Kathleen. Thank you, Kathleen. Go ahead.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. And just in general, we'll have our speakers. We have 5 of them, and they will all go. Then we will have a brief period of exchange among the speakers, and then we will have space for questions and comments. So please be sure to participate when we get to that point, part. And we are covering, May Day is an International Day of Working Class Unity and Struggle. So it's an internationalist presentation, including speakers on Palestine and Lebanon, and also organizing around the war against Iran, and also Black Workers for Justice and Justice for Migrant Families are the 2 speakers. And so we are giving emphasis to the importance of the connections between national and international struggles, and to the connections and unity that all of us are striving to build and develop in this situation, for our resistance and for our rights and for our liberation and emancipation. And we're also giving some focus on the role of women, naturally, given who we are. So I will be introducing our first speaker is Rania Masri. And since 2022, Rania has been co-director and director of organizing and policy for the North Carolina Environmental Justice Network. Since 1990, Rania has organized for justice and against systems of oppression and wars through protests, teach-ins, and conferences, political organizing, public speaking, training, writings, research, and media work. She taught holistic environmental sciences, including environmental justice, at the university level for nearly 2 decades. She served as an expert in the Court of Conscience, where she presented testimony on the environmental impact of the 2006 Israeli war on Lebanon, and as a juror in the 2025 Merchants of Death War Crimes Tribunal. She recognizes the intersectionality of struggles and the need to stand in solidarity, not in charity. In honor of the land and the resistance fighters, she asks, what can we achieve today for tomorrow's world? Dr. Masri is from the artificially divided land of Greater Syria, and she'll be speaking about the resistance in Lebanon and the environmental impact on the region and the struggle more generally in the region. Welcome, Rania.
Thank you, dear comrades. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the space. I was asked, how can we support the resistance? And for me, it starts with understanding the lies and understanding who we're fighting. So allegedly, our great president, Donald Trump, announced a ceasefire on the 16th of April between Israel and Lebanon. So it must be true, right? There must actually be a ceasefire. We have these headlines in the press, direct quote, amid ceasefire, Israeli forces ramp up destruction of homes in southern Lebanon, end quote. Quote, fighting continues despite ceasefire. So what ceasefire? How? What kind of ceasefire is there since the 16th of April? Since the 16th of April, this official ceasefire, there have been 565 Israeli air and drone strikes and 200 artillery shells throughout the Lebanese territory by Israel. So what ceasefire? But then we take it even further back because there was allegedly another ceasefire agreement on the 27th of November, 2024. From the 27th of November, 2024 until mid-February, Hezbollah, the main resistance in Lebanon, the main backbone of defense in Lebanon, had been abiding by that ceasefire while Israel continued to kill at least one Lebanese a day and continued to demolish and occupy southern villages. And Hezbollah was patient, and Hezbollah was patient. And then on February 28th, with the start of the US-Israeli war on Iran, Hezbollah responded finally to all of these attacks that it had been enduring. And since February 28th, we have seen at least 3,688 Israeli strikes on Lebanon. Since February 28th, at least 8,693 people in Lebanon have been injured. At least 2,846 people have been killed, including at least 139 paramedics. And just like in Gaza, Israel is deliberately targeting paramedics, deliberately targeting hospitals, 16 hospitals damaged, 3 entire hospitals shut down. To understand the severity of Israeli crimes, last week an Israeli drone killed and targeted a Syrian father and his 12-year-old daughter through 3 drone strikes. They shot a strike at a motorcycle. They managed to survive. They hit another strike against the father. The child was running and a 3rd strike targeted her. Yesterday, the news said that Israel is raining bombs on civilians fleeing in their cars across Lebanon. And it reminded me of Gaza. Yesterday, Hassan Farhat wrote on Twitter, my cousins, children blown apart by Israeli strikes, nothing left to bury. Once again, I remember Gaza. Also yesterday, a displaced family on their way to Beirut was targeted deliberately by Israel. Entire 4 members of the family were burned alive in their car. These strikes happen regularly, not making the press, does not make the press. And today, the Israeli military ordered residents of 8 Lebanese towns to flee Displacement orders for entire towns have become so routine every single morning in Lebanon, typically around 9 a.m. And again, we remember Gaza, how these evacuation orders were placed and enforced. This is not a ceasefire unless they mean by a ceasefire that we cease while they fire. And I'm very grateful and very proud that our men have not stopped firing in defense of our country. Before this official US brokered ceasefire on April 8th, we had what we called Black Wednesday. It was just hours after the US announced that a ceasefire was forthcoming with Iran, and the Israelis did as they typically do. They carried an extensive bombardment right before the announcement and the fulfillment of that ceasefire. 50 fighter jets, 108 airstrikes across Lebanon in 10 minutes, 160 bombs. We in North Carolina woke up to this news, hearing that Mahmas al-Rifai in Beirut was being bombed. My family lives right next door. We called them just as they were fleeing. Just as they were fleeing. It was by the grace, if we are faithful, we would say the grace of God, that my family survived in their building while buildings all around them were demolished. And they were lucky that they had somewhere to go when their home was impacted. 357 people were killed in those 10 minutes, more than 1,000 people wounded. Villages have been destroyed. 60 historical villages have been blown to ashes, displacing more than 1.5 million people, as with Gaza. They go in and they demolish it all. They call it the Rafah Doctrine, where previously it was called the Dahi Doctrine. Interestingly, the Apple maps removed the names of our villages from the maps before they were even demolished and obliterated, as if they can obliterate our history. 60 villages completely, everything decimated. This is a war on the people, it's a war on the homes, it's a war on our villages, it's a war on our history, and of course it's a war on the environment. And we have to understand environmental destruction during wars is not accidental, it is deliberate. It is not collateral damage, it is deliberate, it is strategic. It is used as a tool of domination to separate people from their lands, to dismantle us. Right now, 1/3 of all Lebanese farmland is inaccessible, contaminated by white phosphorus and heavy metals. Right now, almost 80% of our farmers have been forced out and displaced. Right now, almost 1.5 million people in Lebanon are expected to face acute food scarcity because of the demolition of our agricultural land. Almost 2 million livestock have been killed, 29,000 beehives destroyed, 60,000 olive trees destroyed, just in the past few months. And yet none of this is surprising. We have to put this into context. Lebanon has always been under attack by Israel since 1948. The first Israeli massacre against Lebanese was in 1948 in Hula, and massacres have been continuing ever since. Because again, we should not be surprised. We can read what the Israelis themselves said. In 1918, Polish Ben Gurion, because let us remember, they don't come from our region, then who became the Israeli first prime minister. In 1918, Ben Gurion described the future so-called Jewish state as to the north of the Litani River and to the northeast all the way into Damascus and the southern border all the way into Sinai. At the beginning of the 1948 theft of Palestine, Ben Gurion stated, and I quote, "There needs to be a Christian state in Lebanon. A Christian state in Lebanon ought to be set up whose southern borders would be the Litani River, and we will form an alliance with them." In the coming years, he repeated this idea, where he said, all we need to do is find a Christian Lebanese officer and win him over or buy him with money so that he would declare himself the savior of the Maronite population. Then the Israeli army would enter Lebanon, occupy the territory, establish a Christian government, which would form an alliance with Israel. And this is what Ariel Sharon did in 1982. And we know the Sabra and Shatila massacre that arose afterwards, and it was defeated. And we have to remember, it was defeated by the people in Beirut in 1982, who made the Israeli army flee Beirut in 1982. And the people of Lebanon also made the Israeli army flee in May 2000, where they literally ran down the hill into occupied Palestine. But we have to recognize the plan of Greater Israel. In 1982, a former advisor to Ariel Sharon, published what he called the Yinon Plan, and it stipulates that Israel must reconfigure its geopolitical environment through the balkanization of the Arab states into smaller and weaker states. They spoke openly about calling for the division of Iraq into a Kurdish state and two Arab states, one for Shia Muslims and one for Sunni Muslims. And we remember what has happened to Iraq since 1990 until now with the division of Iraq. They spoke further about establishing a war between Iraq and Iran. This was discussed in 1982. They spoke further about dividing Lebanon, dividing Egypt, dividing Syria, and calling for the dissolution of nations in North Africa, including, of course, Sudan and Libya. They openly spoke about Israel becoming an imperial regional power and effecting the division of the whole area into small states, with the Zionist hope being that sectarian-based states become Israel's satellites. We have seen that right now in the United Arab Emirates. We have seen that in Jordan. They spoke openly about fragmenting all Arab states. We see very clearly Zionism is not only an existential threat to Lebanese and Palestinians and Syrians and Jordanians and Iraqis, but also to Iran, to Egypt, to Sudan, to the people throughout the region, because Zionism is a political project that justifies the disposability of people. Thereby, it becomes a threat to us all. And because the armed resistance in Lebanon is so marvelous, so divine, so kissed by the glory of God, that the US government is now trying to appease the Lebanese government and to push it into treason, which is exactly what we have happening today, an act of treason by the Lebanese government in their meetings with the Israeli government in Washington, D.C. Lebanese and Israeli officials today held their third meetings to discuss cooperating to disarm Hezbollah and make a deal to normalize ties. This is an act of treason, and I'm speaking here specifically an act of treason against the Lebanese constitution. It is a violation of Lebanese laws, and the Lebanese president and prime minister are doing this without the approval of the Lebanese parliament. The response from the Lebanese resistance is the decision will be made on the battlefield and will not be made by these individuals in the hall, so-called, of diplomacy. And the people are resisting. And it is amazing. Hezbollah today has manufactured drones that even The Guardian says are unlike any other drones because they are radio controlled. Because they are radio controlled, they cannot be jammed by they cannot be jammed by electronic devices. Israel is using $100,000 interceptor missiles from the Iron Dome against $200 homemade drones by Hezbollah, and they are losing. The Israeli military specifically, it's occupying Israeli soldiers in Lebanon, and I quote, "If you see these drones, all you can do is duck and pray." Again, we have the Israeli occupying soldiers referring to Hezbollah as ghosts because they don't know when these fighters appear. They don't know how they appear. And again, I remember the fighters in Gaza, how the Israeli occupying army and the genocidal army spoke about the soldiers in Gaza, the marvelous fighters in Gaza, also as ghosts. And again, I remember the Viet Cong, how we had the US Army in Vietnam refer to the Viet Cong as ghosts because they don't know how they appear. Again, we see the similarity and the intersectionality of numerous liberation struggles. And we remember, and we have to remember, that as horrific as today is, we have been here before. The Lebanese people did manage to beat the Israelis in 1982. They beat them again in May 2000. They beat them again in July 2006. And because, and I believe this is the lesson for us all, because the fighters, both the men and the women and the children and the community who supports them, reject the concept of inevitability. They reject the concept of the logic and practicality and pragmatics of war, where yes, we are underfunded. Yes, the Israelis are much stronger and supported by the US superpower. Yes, their military is the fourth largest military in the world. Yes, 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 all of this. But because our ties to the land are so glorious, we reject this concept of inevitability, and they are winning in the battlefield. Imagine if we carried just a little bit of their rejection of inevitability in our struggles here, how much we could accomplish with that passion and that determination. So I repeat again, to support the resistance, we understand the fight, we reject Zionism in all its forms, we reject the concept of inevitability, and we learn to organize to win, to honor our ancestors and the sacrifices that our ancestors have made. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Wonderful.
Rania.
Wonderful.
Bravo.
Appreciate all that information and that spirit, which definitely reflects the people of Lebanon and the whole region. You know, that it's the people that are going to decide, and that is also the lesson of Vietnam and Korea too. You know, the U.S. is the most powerful military and all of the rest of it, but it's the people who decide these questions and their just cause, that they have their right to defend themselves and for self-determination and liberation, and we see that. And it's just very inspiring, given everything that's going on, to know that women are playing an important role in the situation as well. Okay, let's see. Our next speaker is going to be Dr. Rabab Abdulhadi. Dr. Rabab Abdulhadi is a public intellectual and scholar activist who has applied her scholarship and dedicated her life to developing and broadening Middle East studies. She is the founding director and senior scholar of the Arab and Muslim Ethnicities and Diasporas Studies, AMED, at San Francisco State University, as well as associate professor of ethnic studies and affiliated faculty in sexuality studies and queer ethnic studies. In her work as the founding director of AMED, Dr. Abulhadi maintains a rigorous academic program through which students, staff, and members of the community can collectively engage in the struggle for international justice. As director, she negotiated a memorandum of understanding between San Francisco State University and An-Najah National University in Palestine. Her webinar, Teaching Palestine, provided accessible and free educational programming and streamed live in an interactive format that engaged both student and community audiences. Topics included discussions on Black liberation, its interconnection to Palestine, gender, and sexual justice. Her deep commitment to Palestinian studies in relation to not only gender, sexuality, feminist, and queer studies, but also others stands out. She is also a founder, board member, or advisor of numerous scholarly and activist organizations, as well as professional unions. Please welcome Dr. Rabab Abdulhadi.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be with everybody here, and it's such a pleasure to have my sister, my comrade, my friend Rania start this discussion, and also prepare a lot of things that saves me some time so I can discuss other things, because I agree with Rania of everything you said about the region, and I could also like add and engage more. But we don't have a lot of time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to basically answer maybe the first two questions about the resistance of Palestinian women. We can discuss the region maybe later on after our comrades from Iran will discuss the broader topics, and leave the solidarity and what people can do later on for all of us to discuss. I want to just start by making a land acknowledgement that my university sits on occupied, unceded, stolen indigenous peoples' land of the Ohlone Nation, and we support their right to exercise self-determination, to return to their land, and to reparations, as we do for all indigenous people. I also want to make a stop for a moment of silence to honor all the martyrs who have fallen in the defense of Palestine, in Iran, in Lebanon, in all the areas around the world, from Venezuela to Cuba to Sudan to Congo, South Africa, Puerto Rico, Kashmir, Minneapolis, Los Angeles, anywhere and everywhere around the world and in the United States. And I'm sorry, I don't have time to mention every single area, because the whole world is being destroyed by the United States as a junior partner, Israel. But we do remember the many people who have fallen, the martyrs who have fallen a long time ago, and the ones who continue to fall today. And I want to also start by reminding ourselves of the context that yesterday was the anniversary of 41 years of the bombing of the MOVE community and murdering right in the United States. Lest people get deluded and think that the United States actually has values of humanity, of democracy, as the powers that be, as the 250 years anniversary of the United States come soon, remind us that this is a land of democracy and pursuit of happiness and so on. We do know that it is the land of genocide, as is Israel, of the indigenous people, the land that has kidnapped and enslaved people from Africa, and that continues to confiscate and embark against the rights of people around the world in order to steal their resources and so to crush them, and in order to prevent any kinds of feelings and sentiments and organizing for justice and freedom. But people continue doing so, as you've mentioned, Kathleen, when you introduced the topic, and everybody else here, and we will be discussing it again and again. The other big anniversary that's coming up is tomorrow is the 78th anniversary of the Nakba, which is the anniversary of when Israel was founded, May 15th, 1948, and resulted in the Nakba, which was a word that was coined by the Lebanese intellectual Constantin Zreik, and means the catastrophe that caused the disposition of at least 750,000 Palestinians due to Israeli designed, intended, and social engineering plan to empty Palestine from Palestinians, and to basically promote the slogan that was invented in the 17th and 18th century by Christian missionaries who were in Palestine, or so-called the Holy Land, and they said that this is a land without people because they didn't consider the Palestinians, indigenous people, as a people, and they thought they were irrelevant for a people without a land. For the Jews, that would become Zionists and carry the Zionist mission. And thus the Zionist movement, since its inception in the 18th century, has been intent on erasure. The project of erasure, the genocide that we have been seeing in Gaza, has its origins in the erasure of the Palestinian people, getting rid of them, getting rid of their connection with the land, removing even the indigenous plans and replacing them with foreign European plans, getting rid of the culture, getting rid of the food, getting rid of the clothes, getting rid of everything, Hebraize all the words, and so on and so on and so forth. And this is in every single aspect. There is scholasticism of the academic education. There is sociocide that Professor Salih Abdul Jawad says of the society. Every aspect of getting rid of the Palestinians in order to say that there were no people, to erase that, to legitimize the Zionist project. However, it's been over 100 years, and Palestinians are still here. Palestinians are still resisting and are still here fighting. However, the topic will be much more faster. We will be able to accomplish justice in Palestine much faster if we can organize more and more and fight more and more in order for us to erase the Zionism that is a project, racist, settler colonial, violent, that's affecting the whole world, not just Palestine, as Rania has spoken before. This is what's going on. And if we want to talk about what's going on in Gaza today, we would ask, why are the children targeted in particular? Why are children? Why are pregnant women? Why are maternity wards? Why are the incubators? Why are specifically all aspects that have to do with reproduction, birth, life, why are they all getting rid of? Why are the foods? Why are the trees? What is all of this? Why is this being not only a laboratory that's being actually exported to any parts of the world, being affected in Gaza? And we can discuss about that further. However, I want to this is the context that we're discussing within it. And Zionism has always been, and Israel has been always intending to also divide Palestinians from having our project as unity of land, people, and cause, separating it, dividing it in order to conquer the Palestinians. Of course, that goes also for the Arab world, as Rania has discussed. We can also elaborate on that more and more. And this happens within each Palestinian community, wherever it was, according to chronological and historical purposes. And so today, even the Nakba itself, Palestinians in the 48 areas, the land where Palestinians who were Zionism was unable to expel remained, they are unable to even commemorate the Nakba. According to the Israeli law of 2011, the Nakba law, that they cannot. So what Palestinians communities have been doing is taking their children to the villages that have been completely destroyed to show their children and continue inheriting them the histories of their communities and so on, talk about what has happened before. But that's not, that's the law is prohibits Palestinians from doing so, building on the laws that were passed after Israel was founded, the law of return that doesn't allow any Palestinians to go back to their land, but allows every single Jew anywhere around the world to receive Israeli citizenship the minute they arrive in Tel Aviv airport or any border. The law of property that allows the Israeli state to take over any piece of land and give it in trust for the Jewish National Fund for all Jews around the world, not for the Palestinians, and so on and so forth. There is also the law that people might know in 2018, the nation state law that actually legitimizes Israel as a land for the Jewish people, not for anybody else. And most recently, the execution law that, unlike the rest of the world, that moving towards ending the death penalty, Israel is the country that's actually legislating it. And so this is what we are dealing with. Now, I want to focus on the minute of. Thank you for mentioning Mandela. Yes, I want to focus on the question I was asked to talk about the resistance of Palestinian women in particular. That was the topic I was asked before. Like all Palestinians, Palestinian women have been resisting and have been naturally. I mean, anybody who's reasonable will say, of course, women will be resisting because they're part of the Palestinian people. Why shouldn't they resist? They're not separate. That we want to apply essentialist logic. We say only women will be separated and so on. But in all societies of the world, women will be part, and women will also be involved in workers' rights, workers' struggle. We are talking about International Workers' Day, May Day. And so this is also part of the struggle that women would belong to. Those who advocate essentialist politics around women's liberation and so on, and I would say that's not really all women's liberation. That may represent 1% of all women around the world that talks about women qua women, that we are all unified by genitalia, which doesn't really make sense at all, because there is nothing that connects me with Hillary Clinton or even Kamala Harris, but there is everything that connects me with workers around the world, wherever they may be, whatever language they speak. And we may not understand each other, but we understand our pains and dreams and hopes, and we celebrate our victories wherever we are. Palestinian women, this has always been applied, incidentally, to the lives of women in third world countries and in the third world communities within here, the United States and so on, that are not part of the dominant status quo, hegemonic understanding. So it is really important for us to reframe the paradigm and to think about it differently. And I know all of you understand that, but it is very dominant, very strong in the world around us. So, for example, just only yesterday, the Nicholas Kristof, or the day before, wrote a big article in the New York Times about, and Kristof is not one of the friends of the Palestinians, and took for a very, very, very long time to talk about what happens with the sexual the violence against Palestinian prisoners. Took a very long time. It's been existing for a very long time. So finally, he wrote an article. Today, Isabel Krishner, the Israeli ambassador within the New York Times, writes a whole article saying that actually there is all these studies and so on by Israeli commissions and civil rights and so on that actually say that there has been rape by Palestinians, all Palestinians, of the hijacked victims and by of Israelis, and all the stuff that she includes in the we have already studied, and I'm saying we because I'm part of a feminist group that we have done a lot of analysis since it came up, and we have published a lot of it in the Writers Against the War, in New York Crimes. And we have basically gone through everything, not only us, Electronic Intifada, the art writing by Max, I forget his name. I wasn't even thinking about talking about it, but today she comes up and puts all of this stuff out to defend Israel and to divert us. I wasn't even going to talk about this, but once again, it's presented and diminish and belittle whatever happens to Palestinians, because there wasn't only Nick Kristof who spoke about this. It has been mentioned by Euro-Mediterranean Center. It has been mentioned by Human Rights. There have many people who have went and testified and so on. This has not been this already now, she comes in and she puts it in the what do you call it, the most authoritative paper. However, this is really important to kind of like challenge the Orientalism, the Islamophobia, the racist, colonialist, Eurocentric, Americo-centric understanding of what is it about women and men in the third world, in other countries, that racism basically, thanks Rania for providing the references. That's really great. And and there is so much more that's been already published, and they don't have any tested evidence actually from their own, what they call um, witnesses, that they don't know their names, they don't want to speak, they don't want to do this. This has been the case for 3 years now. But we need to reframe this and understanding that we do need a different paradigm that does not really legitimize Betty Friedan, that women became feminists when they get out of the work, when the whole world, women work around the world. They don't sit idle at home. And so, including the Palestinian women also have been working. The same way we challenge what is work. Is work only working when it is formal, when it is in census in the United Nations and so on, or there is informal work that's actually the majority of the people around the world and so on? How do we think about people's cultures and interaction and so on around different areas of work? This has been always involved, but also, even if we want to talk about the formal ways in which we look at organizing, Palestinian women have been involved in labor and workers' unions since the 1910s, since this is something that we record around the world. Palestinian women were very much involved in some of the organizations that we recognize around the world, like the Women's League of Peace and Freedom. There have been Palestinian women and Lebanese women, by the way. They were already involved in it internationally. They were organized in labor movements around Palestine against the Zionist so-called labor, that they were supposed to talk about labor, but they weren't actually, and they were against Palestinian workers, and they decided that they were going to prioritize Zionism, what they call Jewish nationalism, over working for the working class. And they fought with the Palestinian women and men at the time. Palestinian women organized against the Balfour Declaration, and their understanding, the way we understand today labor and talk about it, that labor is about everything, the same way as women's issues about all issues. They are very much interlinked, and justice is something that goes for everybody. You cannot divide justice. The indivisibility of justice is very important. This was much earlier. Palestinian resistance, women's resistance, has been as important as carrying guns, as it is to write petitions, as it is to be involved in civil disobedience, as it is to provide food and medicine, and provide homegrown goods as an alternative to Israeli goods to boycott, and so on. And we can talk about the militant women, what they have done. I think a lot of people already know about Layla Khaled and other women who have been involved. But also really important, what happened to Palestinian women prisoners, and the ways in which they also resisted torture, sexual torture, bodily torture, but also solidarities among them. When in 1997, after Oslo, which we can talk about, it's not something that is actually liberatory or self-determination or something. I call it the Vichy government of Palestine. It has nothing to do with liberation. But when it happened and there were Palestinian male prisoners released, Palestinian women prisoners said, all of us or none. All Palestinian prisoners have to be released, or none of us will get out at all. And so they all stayed in prison and tied themselves to the cells, and they refused to get out, even though their water cannons were thrown at them. Israel tried to beat them up, and all 27 of them were released at the same time. To continue today, also on the Palestinian May Day, the Palestinian women organizations also signed a statement with the other organizations of the organizations around May Day, with the other movements and so on. This is something that is very much part and parcel, and it's a very, very long part of discussion that we can go into, but it is continuing, and also under the whole what's going on in Gaza and everywhere around the world. This is something that is it should be elementary. It shouldn't be something that we need to talk about, but it's also very much important aspect to understand that there is a role and women are participating. The question is, why is it that we don't see women's faces we didn't hear women's voices, we do not understand where women is coming from. And it's very important here to talk about something very elementary too. We're not talking about representation. Where are the women? There were some liberal and Zionist and so-called bourgeois women in Palestine and so on. When Oslo happened, where are the women? We did not really want any women to be there because we disagreed completely with this colonial structure and so on. We were talking like why don't you talk about the women's spokespeople? Why do you only had Hanan Ashrawi for certain period of time and then nobody else? So people think that there is only one woman and no one else. So they have either the Leila Khaled, which they demonize her so much to the point when we invited her to speak at an open classroom to our students, and we had 14,000 people signed up on Zoom and 4,000 people on Facebook. The Zionist movement made all attempts to make sure that she doesn't, because they didn't want people to be able to see her as a 76-year-old woman, grandmother, who speaks to everybody on all sorts of topics, as her grandchildren, her role in the social movement, her understanding of what happens on the ground, her yearning to go back to her house in Haifa, which she was displaced from 4 years old, her hatred to eat oranges because they lost all their oranges in the orchard in Haifa. They didn't want her. They wanted to set her in a time. Fix her as the terrorist in the 1968, 69, 70 as the one who hijacked planes, because anybody looks at her and sees her as a human being that she is, it will shake the understanding of what Palestinians were. So we have her that they succeeded. They succeeded to shut us up, and they succeeded to make us terrorists, and succeeded to make us supportive of the material support of terrorism. And this is some of the stuff that we confront. But this is the way it is presented. So we need to think about that. What is the relationship between that and presenting also Palestinian men as only those they accept, the men in suit and tie, and also demonize the rest of the men and present our men as rapists, present our men as animals, present our men as danger. But it is very similar to the same way as Emmett Lee Hill was presented. It's the same way as men, brown, black, Arab, Muslim, Palestinian men are presented as danger and also desirous of the white women. They are always desiring white women, and they are dangerous to everybody. And we're always trying to defend them as guilty until proven innocent. So they are not seen as quote unquote the normal men that they are there. So we have a very big task in order for us to deal with in terms of even reversing the intellectual understanding that we do. And this is the same situation when we think of the Iranian people. Okay, I don't know. Am I getting a note to stop or what?
Yeah,
Okay,
your time is up.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna stop here so we can also discuss the other questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we appreciate the important role that the expression in terms of the role that women are playing, and also the point that's made that genocide is directed to women and to giving to the next generation, to making sure there isn't another generation, and in many different ways. And I think that was also the case in the presentation on Lebanon, that when we speak about the role that women play, one of it is to ensure the next generation does survive and is brought, nurtured, and taken care of. And that's also part of the role that women play in this situation. Thank you very much. And we will go on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Setareh Sabety. I hope that's right. She was born in Tehran, Iran, and educated at Boston University. She's an Iranian-American blogger, an activist, mom, and grandmother. She has published many articles, mostly about Iran and the exile experience over the years. With a group of like-minded friends, she founded the anti-war group MA, Mothers and Allies Against War, a group that was born out of necessity to stop the war on Iran. Welcome, Setareh.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be amongst you. I'm totally moved. I actually cried when the two speakers spoke, my Arab sisters. We are so connected in so many ways. I grew up admiring Leila Khaled, living in uptown elitist Tehran, but I was in love with Leila Khaled. The group we have founded, I'm Iranian American, as you mentioned, and the group we founded it, a few of us, friends, women, when the second war on Iran took place. And we did it because unlike maybe the Palestinian or the Lebanese people, I'm not sure, in the Iranian diaspora, there is a huge division. So we had a whole bunch of people actually backing Trump, backing Netanyahu, coming in the streets. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a source of infinite embarrassment for me. In the streets of Vancouver, Toronto, Los Angeles, Paris, etc., asking for with Israeli flags and American flags, asking Israel and the US to come and bomb us and free us from the regime. Now, what you were just describing about how the Palestinians and the Arab men have been painted over the years, this has occurred also for Iranians. Ever since the revolution, Islamic Revolution of 1979, which toppled an American puppet king, monarch, authoritarian dictator, Iran has become independent. Iran is not a ideal republic in any sense of the word, especially from a feminist, socialist point of view. But one thing Iran did achieve was independence and sovereignty. And that came at a high price. And many of us were betrayed by the revolution. I was 18 years old when the revolution happened. We were betrayed. A lot of the women who supported the revolution, a lot of the secular people who supported the revolution, were a little bit disappointed when, after the revolution, the hijab was imposed on us. So the imposition of hijab is really unfortunate, because if that one thing hadn't happened, it would have not provided so much fodder for the liberal Westerns and would not have made me, myself, feminist watch the situation for my own view. And it's very complicated, because it's hard to pick between sovereignty and individual freedom and what's more important. But now that, ever since 1979 until now that we're in this unprovoked, illegal, completely insane land grab of a war. I mean, these many years, Iran has been independent. Iran has fought a war against Iraq, which again, it did not start. Iran has not started the war in centuries. And we lost, there was something close, some people say close to 1 million soldiers were lost in that war, soldiers and civilians. And Iran did not give up 1 inch, even though Israel was helping Iraq, US was helping. Iranians are very resilient. So they have this background, and this sort of, their whole identity is resisting the US and supporting Palestine. I am very proud, as much as I do not like to be forced to wear something, I am very proud of this regime for its relentless support of the Palestinian people. She's the only country in the region who does that. Shame on the Arab sheikhs. Shame on them. So when I think of Iran, it fills me with pride. It fills me with pride. So we founded this group because we were feeling a bit lonely in our opposition to the war. And we faced within our families, within our societies, we felt, I myself was doxxed, for example, my address, published, everything, just because I was anti-war. So, so there is this bipolarity amongst Iranians vis-a-vis the regime. But I want to I want to go into what I think is good, some of the positives, because there's a lot of course, doom and gloom in the U.S. What's happening in Lebanon? It's just horrific, Gaza, everything. But something happened from the time we founded this group. When I was thinking, really, I didn't think the Iranians would last more than a few weeks. But the fact that the Iranians have managed this war up to now without losing anything, of course, the first day of the war, we had a double tap tomahawk attack on a girls' school in Mina, 168. It's our My Lai massacre. The press will not talk enough about it. 168 school children, double tap tomahawk missile. The same day that they assassinated our supreme leader, whom many people didn't really like, but whom everybody now, including myself, well, minus those Trumpers who want to make Iran great again, but everybody now looks at as a hero, a martyr, because he's the first head of state in 300 years to die in his own home in Iran. The other two fled. I'm sorry, I have my grandchild. The other two fled Lebanon. I mean, fled Iran, and they were both. The first one was put there by the British, and the second one by the Americans. And some of you might know the story of how the Shah fled and how all that happened there. But this war really is starting to feel like maybe, just maybe, there's going to be an end to this American hegemony. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And the drones you were talking about, that the Iranians are selling to the Russians, these drones. Who would have thought? Never in a million years. And Iran has proven that when you kick out the colonizer, when you kick out the superpower, when the superpower is your enemy, you can still build roads, you can build missiles, you can build drones that hit back, you can have armies. We have more female graduates of universities in Iran than anywhere. 70% of our university graduates are women. Our head of national airlines woman. We have women in parliament. So just because they are wearing the hijab, which, by the way, has also eased the past several years, doesn't mean that they're not empowered. In fact, when I look at them, I see that they're in many ways more empowered than the American counterparts. When you look at Iranian women college students, you see they're very, very empowered. Somehow this repression has not necessarily been bad, and certainly the sovereignty has helped Iran become independent to the point that it's now has been fighting the United States for this long without really having given up or having conceded anything. And of course, if you know anything about the JCPOA that was signed in 2015, John Kerry and during Obama, that nuclear deal, right now, they want to get back to that same nuclear deal that Trump tore, and Biden did not reinstate. So we're basically are spending billions each day of American taxpayer money. We have lost thousands of lives, and nothing has been gained. So hopefully, inshallah, the whole dynamic of the region will change after this war. maybe it's wishful thinking on my side, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Our message, and this is where we have an intersectionality with all these groups that are anti-Trump, and our message is one thing. In the midterms, this is what I believe is the most important message. In the midterms, vote against the AIPAC candidate. We don't have two parties. We have AIPAC, no AIPAC. Finished. I will never, ever, anybody come close to it, it should be the kiss of death. In France, they just had a municipal elections. Most of the people who were close, who were pro-Israel, didn't get elected. So this, I think, is a universal truth now, that Israel is the most unpopular state on the planet. And it came at a huge cost. It makes me cry when I think of Gaza, that had to be the price. But at least we're here. I have never in my life thought that I would come to a place in America where we could actually say anti-Israeli things and still have candidates win like Mamdani did. This is huge. Anybody who's old as I am knows. Back in those days, I remember the first time I wrote a blog for Iranian.com. Those were the .com days. I wrote, "Today I'm a Palestinian." It was the first attack on Gaza. It was after Obama election, or anyway. I remember I got a phone call to my home, to my house, landline, back in the day. It's telling me I will never be published again because I had written that article. So it's real, the power is real, but the resistance should focus solely on disenfranchising AIPAC in the American political landscape. If we do that, we can do everything else. I think I'm going to let people ask me questions if they have any, because I don't know how, I've kind of lost track of time. Do you want me to give you some background on the Iran, or should we open to
No, it's about 15 minutes, so
okay, good.
you went there if you want to add anything to conclude.
No, I just want to really thank you all, because it feels great. To tell you the truth, we have a hard time getting people into our meetings, because of the problems I told you. So it's very nice to see that there's a bunch of people here that are listening to me, giving me claps and hearts, and I love you all.
Thank you very much. We're very honored to have you here, and we appreciate the effort to unite mothers across the different, views that one may have.
We left it. We put mothers and allies against war, and we put allies there because, one, we were small, and two, we have people like David, who's here in this meeting, who are really moms. They are. So we keep it gender neutral, if you will.
Yeah, and also Ma stands for something in.
It means us.
Us? It means us? Okay.
Persian, Ma.
In Persian? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I think that aspect of the work that you're doing is very important. And, mothers all have a commonality that they can, overcome those kinds of divisions that get put. The U.S. is very good at trying to tell everybody who is okay, who is legitimate and who's not in this world. And,
Yes.
And to demonize whole countries like they've done with Iran and they've done with Lebanon and other countries, and Cuba is now supposed to be the worst. And so I think it's an important aspect of the organizing that all of us do to unite people despite whatever differences that might exist. When they're taking a stand against war, that's good enough.
Good enough. Exactly.
And we appreciate that that's the effort that you are engaged in.
Thank
Okay. All right, let's see. Where are we? Next is Ashaki. You're going to introduce Anne. Ann is from the Black Workers for Justice and an organizer among Black workers. And we are paying attention here to the role of workers in the struggle in general. So Ashaki, do you want to say a few words of introduction?
Yes, thank you. It's just so wonderful. We've heard been honored to hear Rabab speak before and Rania, and they were so eloquent. But Sister Setareh, I mean, we hadn't had the honor of hearing you before, so that was so important and wonderful, and we thank you so much. We learned a lot. So we've looked at at Lebanon, at Palestine, and at Iran, just wonderful. So I just wanted to bring forward that the nature of this country here being a settler colonial state, that the Black Liberation Movement stands in unity, with these struggles around the world. And there's so many more that we didn't get a chance to talk about tonight, with Venezuela, with Cuba, and all of the places around the world that are under attack from U.S. imperialism. So and it's so important for us to learn as much as we can about Western Asia and everything going on in the Middle East, etc. So, but one of the things that I think is important to realize is that the history of the Black Liberation Movement and of Black people in this society, also reflects a lot of the same questions, the same repression, the same oppression, and the same struggle for self-determination and sovereignty and national liberation that the other countries are also fighting for. So, and a lot of times, and we've heard the all of the history and the overview of these struggles, but they really come down to the day-to-day struggle of people in our communities that are fighting the day-to-day issues and areas of oppression that we have. So we wanted to bring forward, some of our leaders at the base in the community, and Sister Ann Ingram, who's a member of Black Workers for Justice, but she's also a leader in Richmond County, North Carolina, of the Richmond County Coalition for Justice and Black Political Empowerment. And as everyone knows, the African American community continues to be under direct attack from this administration, now trying to eliminate all questions of power, all questions of basic rights. And we're dealing with that day to day. So Sister Ann represents and is struggling in her community, around some of the, direct oppressive environmental and labor issues that are going on in that area. So I want to thank Ann for being willing to join us and being a part of this discussion tonight, and ask her to come forward and talk a little bit about some of the struggle that they're engaged in. So, Sister Ann Ingram, thank you, sis. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Ashaki. Definitely appreciate you and everyone. Hello to everyone that's on the panel. My name is Ann Ingram. I am a leader and a member of Richmond County Coalition for Justice and Black Empowerment. Also, Black Workers for Justice. I am also a teacher here in Richmond County school system. Thank you for inviting me. Richmond County Coalition for Justice and Black Empowerment is dedicated to addressing systematic injustices and environmental racism fueled by industrial practices in our communities. And it advocates for clean drinking water, the rights of Black workers, and the end to the disproportionate impacts faced by the Black communities here in Richmond County and beyond, other counties and states and in the world. Our strategic focus is to build rural Black worker and environmental justice power through the Movement Center, workplace committees, and also the local environment and economic justice through campaigns. We are dedicated to addressing the systematic injustices and the practices in the communities and advocating for clean water, because we need clean water here and everywhere. the rights of Black workers and the end to disproportionate impacts faced in the Black communities, as I said, in Richmond County and beyond. And this can be from here to, Palestine, Iranian, and Russia, and everywhere and stuff, because we need it. Um, we're also rooted to help integrate workers organizing environmental justice and disaster resilience through its physical space, known as a movement center. This community here serves as political infrastructure, hosting trainings, assemblies, and coordinating the workplace in the communities and land defense campaigns. We have been emerged from grassroots responses to environmental harm and racial iniquity in Richmond County. It evolved from reactive mobilization and long-term institution building, the development of the movement since to mark the shift towards sustained organizing capacity. And it has to help us. At least we have been doing water testing here in Richmond County, sharing, the data with the community and the center. Also, more leadership development, being able to have, assistance and everything. We also, have been going out to the local workplaces here who also benefit from the water here in Richmond County. And not only that, the schools here too. Even like I said, even down to the other companies and stuff that I see what someone had put in the chat, water is life. And it is. And if we don't if we don't work together and we don't fight to get it cleaned up where we live and where we are, and that's just like I said, not only here in Richmond County, but everywhere else, what are we gonna do? It's gonna stay detrimental to our health and make us sick, and what are we gonna do with with the generations behind us? What are we gonna teach them? Are we gonna teach them to say, hey, fight for your rights? Or are we just gonna let them, stay lag behind and not know anything? So that's something that we've been working on here. We have also been, expanding the water capacity, the water testing here. Our key goal is gathering advanced environmental justice, build the work power. From the ground up. We've been able to have assemblies. We've been able to, host events. We've been able to do tours here in Richmond County. Some of the lakes and the rivers here, they are contaminated.
Hopefully she'll get back on in a minute, but at least people get a sense of the struggle that's going on there and the emerging organization that we've been helping to build there. So I'll turn it back to Kathleen for the general discussion, and if she comes back, she can finish if that's okay with everybody. Thank you.
No, that would be good. The struggle around water is always important to everybody. We supported the one when it was in Jackson, Mississippi, and it's an issue more generally because they're privatizing water all over the place.
They are.
And, big cities like Detroit, then they turn people's water off even because it's private companies then in the situation. And so clean water is an important one. And
can I say one more quick thing before we move on?
Yeah.
Just want to educate people about this county. This is the same county that in 2001, the Imperial Foods plant is located there, where the plant caught on fire and killed 25 workers, mostly women, 18 women. And so we were a part of building a real struggle there. It was in Hamlet, and that's a part of the Richmond County area. And it's also reflective of a lot of the counties around the South where some of the towns are incorporated, but much of the power of the Black community is left out of the towns, and they're in unincorporated areas where they have no rights in the city. And so it's very characteristic there of a lot of rural areas around the South. So just wanted to give you that background.
Back, I apologize. My phone died. It's been working all day. So our vision is to help build a future where every community, regardless of their race or economic status, thrive in safety, dignity, and access, to vital resources. And as the Richmond County Coalition for Justice and Black Empowerment grows, we remain to try to stay steadfast in a commitment to not only addressing the injustice of the past, but to also create, longer lasting change that empowers people to organize, be able to advocate, be able to step out, in the forefront, be able to shape and just society for generations to come, because we need it. We need it everywhere. And if we don't get it everywhere, where is it going to go? Where is it going to lead us? What is it going to do for us? Here where I live, I'm only, I would say, 8 to 10 minutes away from where they're building the AI data center. So, and it's disguised as a technological process where people think that they're going there to get a job. They're saying, oh yeah, I'm going to work there. It is 800 acres that they're putting this AI data center there. 800 acres. That's acres that, that our ancestors, what I'm saying, work hard for over the years, over decades, over centuries and stuff, and to just plop down and put an AI data center right where you have, what I'm saying, a full neighborhood, and just like, okay, this is not gonna be a problem. Well, yes, it is. I just saw someone saying that, hey, they watched a video of the data center in another state, and they like, oh, this is what we're gonna have to listen to, because if so, then Amazon pay us to move. And the lady lives 10 minutes away from me, so she's more closer to the AI data center than I am. So that is gonna affect the water here in Richmond County. I mean, it's so bad that we can't drink the water. More people are buying bottled water every single day. And I'm not just talking about, a 12 pack or a 6 pack. I'm talking about cases and cases and cases and cases. It was a board notice here more than one time here in Richmond County. And they said, oh, it's just nothing. We're working on the water system and stuff. But it's old rusty pipes and stuff that's in the school system, that's in residential homes, where they're filtering, tapping in the water systems and stuff here. So they threaten to drain and contaminate local water resources, overheat local ecosystems, and contribute to toxin emissions that pollute the air all day, every day. So as I was telling Ashaki earlier, it's like reaching into the sky trying to get a letter out of the sky, but it's not one up there. So these projects are tied to the Amazon's AI expansion, which brings little to no benefit to the working class residents. Instead of exploiting land, overworking labor, and destabilizing local economies, they represent a digital colonization of rural communities, prioritizing profit and surveillance over public good. And Families need to know and understand, communities, leaderships, organizations, schools, cities, states, everywhere, countries. They need to understand and know, hey, this is not fair. This is not fair to us. It's not fair to our children that's coming in after us. It's not fair to the school system, to the workplaces that, you know, a lot of people are working and having to go to work. Children going to school. Why our kids can't have safe water at school? I had a student come to me, and I'm also a substitute teacher, y'all, by the way. But I had a student come to me, and they were like, "May I get some more water? My water is brown." And I'm like, "Are you serious?" It was in the cafeteria. And I'm like, "Are you serious?" And I said, "Well, let me see." And the water was brown. I said, "If your water is brown again, you let me know, because we're gonna have to, you know, take this to the office, to the school board, so something can be done about it. Take it to the mayor, take it to the, you know what I'm saying, the county commissioners and stuff. Make them be held accountable, you know, for not wanting to do anything about it. Take it to the water bill places. These people who are in leadership and quote unquote power, make them be accountable for it, because it's detrimental to everyone's health, making people sick. You know what I'm saying? Causing cancer, poison, and you know what I'm saying, in the water systems and stuff. E. coli. I just read in well, probably about 2.5 weeks ago. Um, it's in North Carolina, and I'm probably maybe 2 or 2.5 hours away from it. In I don't know if any of y'all ever heard of Charlotte, North Carolina, but it was on the other side of Charlotte where they had to um cut the water systems off because it was E. coli in the water systems. So we have to think about everything that goes on in everything that we do, that, and we got to be able to come together, you know, to help each other. We're outreaching in our communities. We're canvassing every day. We dropping flyers to businesses, even out in the churches and stuff, communities, social media, emails, everything, because we want people to know here where we live at that this is injustice. You know, where one of the local dams is a condominium, and the people are, you can see over that dam, you can see how the water is flowing, you know what I'm saying, and it goes into the soil and land. So who wants to plant vegetables in the soil? Ain't no good, you know. Coming from, who wants some contaminated cabbage or carrots or apple or banana? Nobody does. So we have to think wisely and more efficiently about being able to help one another, being able to come together. Because this is a fight. This is a fight for our life. This is a fight for our children. Even for even our parents, our aunts, everybody. This is a fight that we have to deal with, that we're doing and working hard every day in this coalition to make sure that everyone gets treated fairly and that this water situation is taken care of, because it's vital. It's vital to us and our generations every day and everywhere. I seen when somebody put in a comment about like Flint. Yes. Who wants to wake up to drinking muddy water?
Thank you very much, Anne. We really appreciate all of that information and the struggle that's being waged. And yes, the issue of water is a critical one all around the world. And these, as it was mentioned, these AI centers are huge. It's water theft really that's taking place, and electricity as well. Huge drain on the community for both water and electricity for these AI centers to operate. And they get the kind of water they need. We as human beings are not getting the clean, safe water that we have a right to. And so I think it is something that we will increasingly be an issue for all of us to contend with. And we appreciate the struggle that you're waging on that front and all of what you raised for us. These community battles are quite significant in this period of time because they bring people together to fight and to organize, and that's essential. All right, our last speaker will be FLOR Saldivar. FLOR is a member of Women United Against Genocide Steering Committee. She's an active organizer with Justice for Migrant Families, including on the legal front, and she's someone who came to the country as an undocumented youth and knows well the horrific conditions and attacks on migrants, as well as their resilience and determined struggle for rights. FLOR, up on you. Welcome.
So the essence of why we're here today a little bit was also reflecting of May Day. And I think it's always important to highlight like the history, where we come from. So I think when we're talking about May Day, myself, like I was already mentioned, I myself an immigrant. I came from Mexico at the age of 2. And so being raised in several parts of New York, I've seen different aspects, but definitely being part of a mixed status family, you encounter different levels of worker capacities, work availabilities, what it may be. And it's so just like the interesting idea of like people at some point found it ridiculous that people working more than 8 hours, if I recall, that's like the origins of May Day, that there were horrible working conditions, and people were actively advocating for the 8-hour workday, which is again ridiculous. Now we think about it, like how did people work more than that and they were okay with it? And just to think that people again were tired and we're like getting to a point of this is my boiling point. We have to change this. This is not okay. And again, I don't know maybe necessarily who was at the forefront of that at that point, but I will say I like to toot my own horn, but I like to say most of the time women are the ones that are at the forefront. And so I'd include these pictures today just because you can just visibly see it's not even necessarily of having to choose, but at the end of the day, it is because I feel like women as ourselves, we care, we have a little bit more of an emotional connection to things, where although as we've seen like, oh, it's part of your role as a woman to care and to be motherly and to be caring for everyone else, it's also important to see that that role has also kind of morphed because it also is in a different levels. That you can be a woman in the workforce, you can be a woman at home, you can be a woman in the professional force, you can be a woman in the social justice area. But I think it's just weird how people separate that. And it's just at the end of the day, if you look at these pictures, people are like myself. Like I am someone's daughter, I am someone's sister, I am an organizer, I am a woman, I am a feminist. It's just at the end of the day how I see myself. But I just think, again, it's beautiful to see how women show up day in and day out. And so when people ask me, well, what is the role that women play in the workers' rights movement? I think presence is a big thing. And as you can see, again, I think the visuals are a big part because they're present there. And I feel like having a woman's presence is a sense of security, a sense of motivation, a sense of the ability that things can happen and things that someone there is caring for you. And I think that's very important to highlight for how these movements come about, because again, usually women are at the forefront. And it's women in various different circles. It's teachers who are advocating for their students. It's women who actively would prefer people over profits. It's people who work at the post office. So again, when we talk about workers, it's like people across all over spectrums of the world. It's just people who I think they care for each other and want to make the world a better place is what I like to see it as. But in this like lens, it would be through a woman worker. And I think just in regards to May Day. And we see here, like, who is the representation? Who is at the forefront? Like, again, we see women who are not afraid to speak out. Like, I'd often see this even at restaurants when, like, my husband and I will go out, and if something is wrong, like, he's so scared to say something. I am not. I, as a woman, say, hey, this is not okay. This is not what I asked for. Can we please fix this? And I think it's something as minimal as that versus something as big as what's happening right now on Wall Street. And what's happening with capitalism, what's happening with the wage stuff, and what's happening with billionaires who are profiting off of workers and their backs. And also we have women who are showing out literally on the forefront, women who are not scared, being amongst men, being amongst authority who are predominantly male and still willing to speak up and out. Again, just the presence of being there. And I think this is, again, all in terms of May Day. They were saying that it was a strike, national strike, where folks were, not going to go to work, not going to school, and no trading. So this was a protest that was happening in front of the New York Stock Exchange on May Day. But then we also have, I'm forgetting where this happened. I have notes on this, but we also have the future generation. So I also think the idea of being present and motivating who else is coming behind us, that we're trying to make the world a better place, because not for ourselves, but also for our future students, future children, the generations that are to come behind us, that hopefully don't have to make these same struggles, don't have to go through this again, but they are, you know, they're learning and they're there and they're also willing and motivated to become part of the struggle. So we just, yeah, have a couple more photos from there, from, again, just interesting to see the youth being involved. Back again, you know, back to tax the rich, because at the end of the day, when a workers' rights movement, we know who the clear enemy has become. The enemy is the rich, the enemy is the billionaires, and I think we're tired of waiting for things to happen. We're tired of, like, the windows to break, for the camel to break its back. I forget what the saying is. Like, we want to take action now, and we see, again, women at the forefront, women leading these marches, women understanding that this is what's going to make the world a better place. So just a couple more photos. And then likewise, also, I love to see women in action. And I just think, again, these photos that are amazing to show that we are willing and motivated to speak out. And again, that's very encouraging for myself, because I myself might have been in the audience at one point, and now I'm motivated to be on the forefront to make my voice heard, because I might motivate someone else who's in the crowd. But again, just the presence, the idea that women are speakers for the community. Women are able to voice people's stories. And then also the idea of, like, I don't know if you see, but there's vests a lot of the time. There's also women who, again, provide this idea of security, physically, emotionally, but we have them as marshals in these protests. So if, you know, if there's a security risk, again, women are in these roles that always have something to do with caring, with security, with being at the forefront, with being motivating. And we're talking about social justice movements, but we're also artists. We're also about portraying our culture. And again, this was also on May Day, just bringing about the culture and being present as a woman, as a mariachi on May Day. And again, just more women speakers that, again, are phenomenal. Like, I wasn't there, but I'm so motivated to hear, like, to see this video and hear about what this sister was probably, you know, demanding and exclaiming that we'll make a change on May Day. And again, just what was happening on May Day. There were actions all across the world. There were protests. There were people at the airports. There were Lawyers for Good who got together. There were city streets that were shut down. There were highways that were shut down in California. So there was just, again, various actions across the US that were happening along with our allies, again, because we're all workers at the end of the day. If we're employed, if we work with someone, there are many forefronts, many communities that, again, we're joining up for May Day, understanding that we as workers have to unite for our various reasons and efforts that we have, because we should be united, and united, people power. This is in California. So just, again, just seeing who's in the community, who's out up front, because, again, more than likely it's women. And I love to see that, but we would love to encourage more and more men. You know, that says a lot about us and how much more work we do. And again, just another woman, again, a speaker, a motivational speaker, encouraging others, and has an amazing audience, captivating. So this is what's happening. We're encouraging the workers of tomorrow to stand up, to speak out, and not be afraid to speak for their voices and their rights, just all across the US. So, you know, community, I think that's another big part. Like, yes, we're all about organizing and advocating, making social change, but it's also the idea about actually building connections and relationships with one another, because that is how we're actually gonna truly build community and get along and understand that we are better when we get along and we understand each other. But also going down to New Orleans, you know, again, when we talk about workers, we're not just talking about construction workers. We're not just talking about the farm workers. We're talking about nurses. We're talking about the barista down the street. We're talking about the teacher. We're talking about the library. You know, we have just so many people in different areas of struggle. And at the end of the day, at the root of this cause, it wasn't because nurses were, you know, interested in making more money. That might have been a good reason. And yes, they deserve to get paid more. But it was also, at the end of the day, the idea of care. Like, they understood that they needed a safety patient to nurse ratio. And that's why they decided to get on a strike, because it wasn't correct in the conditions that they were working on. So just, again, these movements that are still ongoing. This is in Minnesota. So again, the idea of, like, yes, everything is serious, but also out in Minneapolis, Minnesota, for May Day, they had a very, very fun protest, just showing how the community is showing out, all the way from Texas to Dallas to McAllen. And again, it just keeps reminding us, who keeps us safe? We do. Our community does, as workers, as united as one. Just a wonderful mom and her children. And I think this goes to the bigger picture, the idea of like, yes, this was within the United States and the workers' rights movements that may be happening here, but this was global, this was national. There were across the US where everyone is against the US, we're down with imperialism, and we're tired of the US and what they're doing. And we're fighting the war down here, and so are they outside. But we're just clear that we're all against this. We're actively working against all these areas. And we hope to not continue to need this. But until then, we're here in Western New York. We just launched the Evicts ICE 250 Delaware campaign because we understand that if ICE is in our backyard, we can't be safe. So let's try to kick them out as a step one. And then further down the road, hopefully we can provide a change that they don't exist at all. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Flor. We
Thank
appreciate
you,
that.
Flor. That was wonderful.
We appreciate all the information. There was like in the United States, there was something like 3,000 demonstrations on May Day of various kinds. And over 70,000 high school students walked out. May Day was on the Friday, and they walked out of school in protest. The youth are playing an important role in the situation, really all around the world. And I think the importance of workers uniting on a world scale and inside the U.S. across the different lines that they try to divide us along, that you're documented or not documented, or the racial lines of women, all the different lines you can say. They gave expression to, as did the demonstrations. The week before, on the 25th of April, hundreds of demonstrations around demanding to abolish ICE. That's the demand of the people now. Abolish it altogether. Not just some funding, abolish it. And, no war on Iran was present. And as you saw in the photos, Palestinian flags, the flag for Iran, the flags for Lebanon were in the demonstrations as well. And the week before that, April 15th, there was demonstrations, no taxes for war. That's, income tax day, April 15th. And so the stand is growing across the country, to demand no wars and no funding for wars, and to fund our rights, to provide us with safe water and the safety and the rights that we have as human beings in the situation. Okay, so I think we'll just go ahead and straightforward open it up for questions at this point. You can ask questions to the audience, to the speakers, or you can also comment. I notice there's people from different organizations. If you want to give a few words about the work that you are doing or any activities you were involved in for May Day, please feel free to do so. And so if you want to just raise your hand, I'll call on you as I see hands. Rabab, you can go first.
No, I'm saying there are some parts of our discussions we did not speak to in order for us to save time. So I was wondering when would you like us to address those? And
Sure, go ahead. You can go.
yeah.
You can go ahead.
No, I don't have to be the first one, but I could, but I was just okay. So, all right. Let me just open my notes because if anybody wants to go while I'm doing that, give me a minute. So the question I think you asked us, I have tons of. One was about the one that I think there is two questions that I didn't address. One was the whole question of the solidarity between different communities, and I think you said what? Here it is.
Yeah, the relation of the Palestinian to the Black liberation.
Yeah, and I think this is something that, of course, first, it actually makes a lot of sense that we have Black Workers for Justice being here because you've had a very, very long history of participating. It's also very makes sense to be also discussing May Day and labor because in the discussions of labor and May Day, there's a lot of contradictions. On one hand, there is a lot of support in many quarters of labor that historically has been very, very supportive, like Black Workers for Justice, like Drum in Detroit. Historically, Black workers and Palestinians came together and actually had a strike, in Detroit that it was, what was it, like maybe now 54 years ago? And there was a specific webinar that they came together and they had a discussion of how they put it together and how they organized and who was against them. And there were several places here and there. But on the other hand, generally, the U.S. labor has been really terrible on Palestine and has blocked many things, mostly because of the Zionist influence, the Zionist Labor Committee in particular influence and trying several things. One is to cut money from outside of the retirement pensions without even asking workers, where do you want
That's
where do
right.
you want your pension money to go? So they
Mhm.
actually put it in and then send it to Israel without even asking. So most of workers in the U.S. did not even know where the money was going. So now a lot of things have changed. Part of the change has to do with the change in the U.S. labor itself. And it's really important to note that the changes in the United States, the changes towards justice in every sector in the United States has a lot of impact and connection with what happens in around the world. So the question of like justice around the world, makes sense. An injury to one is an injury to all. Unite, people of the world unite. El pueblo unido. All of this stuff really makes sense. Internationalism that we talk about instead of the isolationist, racist politics of people in the United States that say no, white people only, white supremacy. So the United States labor movement, as it changed the formation and the whole discussion around rejecting the whole racism, that it always gave more power to like white supremacy and so on, and this and the change about women and all of the stuff that changed in the labor movement and the McCarthyism and the so-called Cold War and supporting U.S. Foreign policy everywhere, Central America and so on, even creating another Labor Day. It's kind of like the United States, the odd man on the block of everywhere else. So the changes in the United States have really also helped a lot. The changes with the solidarity, let's say, with Palestine. And so we see a lot of connections historically. Now there is, after October 7 and the Israeli genocide that began, things have escalated a lot. So we see things in in US labor, many labor movements have already demanded the end of genocide, ceasefire, and then many of them actually refused to endorse Kamala Harris protesting the Democratic Party, basically supporting the U.S. war on Palestine. But also there is much more. And I was just want to say something about even our own union. I'm very proud of that. I'm the co-chair of the Palestine Arab and Muslim Caucus in our union. And we fought so hard to actually establish the caucus because many people from the old regime and also racist and Zionists did not want us to establish. So we fought for 3 years until we were able to have. Now it's our biggest caucus in the union, California Faculty Association, the biggest. I mean, it's really, we can't even keep hold on what we're doing. But I'm seriously like, but also union itself changed. So in the last elections at the assembly, we elected at least half of the leadership of the union, no longer from ancien regime, the old regime that say no to everything. They don't want to change anything. We have a better people who are fighting against ICE, fighting against not fighting for strike or something like this, fighting against the whole thing of the government coming and spying on our faculty and students, going along with management and so on, and passing resolutions against genocide, for boycott. And the recent resolution that we passed is boycotting all Israeli universities. And of course, the Zionists are like, grinding their teeth trying to do things. But it's really bringing us together with ourselves and also with SEIU, the service union in California. So we're together and we decided we're not going to support somebody like Scott Wiener, who is terrible, even though he made some, but we are now together like supporting people like that. This is really important, and there have been delegations, labor delegations, who have gone to Palestine, and the pioneers have been the Black Workers for Justice, the folks in Detroit, and the people who have historically been really pioneers, and I would say really in the Black community, for example, going back
Thank you.
to SNCC, and
That's
going
right.
back to the 50, Robert F. Williams. We talk about
That's
SNCC.
right.
We talk about so many people who have actually suffered a lot for supporting Palestine, losing their jobs and so on. We talk about the Puerto Ricans who historically have stood with the Palestinians and demanded Palestinian liberation. When you said Mothers Against the War, there is a very strong movement in Puerto Rico who said Mothers Against. Every Tuesday they have a demonstration. Every Tuesday they have, the prisoners have always, Oscar Lopez Rivera, when he got liberated from prison, he demanded, and his movement, that the Palestinians will be the head of the parade, the Puerto Rican Day Parade, right after the indigenous people. So I mean, we have a big debt to people around the world, the Vietnamese, the
Mhm.
president of the Vietnamese Student Union. We actually had a webinar with him last week, and it was on the April 29. We had him, and it was also in the same time that Muhammad Ali, April 28th, refused to serve in the draft. So we had like a whole, and we had the Chicano moratorium and the brown beret. I mean, like people come together, and there is so much amazing solidarity that folks don't even remember and don't know. And I think one of the things that we want to know, and women, and I say I'm not talking about the traditional liberal racist unions. I'm talking about the movement that recognize Ida B. Wells, recognize all of the discussion, the internationalist women's movement that historically has stood by us. From Viney Burroughs, I don't know if people know Viney Burroughs or know who she is and what she did. I mean, we've had always people who've had our back. Medgar Evers, Betty Shabazz. I mean, the first place I spoke in New York was at Medgar Evers, and Betty Shabazz was the one who actually welcomed us when many people in the women's movement said, "Oh, are you a nationalist or are you a nationalist or a feminist?" I'm like, what do you mean? So we have a lot of support, and we also express there is a lot of support in the Palestinian women's movement, and I say in the Arab women's movement, and I'm sure Rania will also agree with me. Recognition of the word of what's happening, and of course we shouldn't forget Cuba, that has always, always, always stood by us, and has always ever, never, ever abandoned any people, any people around the world who are struggling. So that's really, it's so important because solidarity lifts people. Now, when people come around the world and express solidarity, let's say with the Palestinians, people in Gaza don't feel they're alone. They feel that they can fight more, they can be resilient more, they can, and for us too, like we feel it's our responsibility to stand with Iran. Iran now is standing for all of us. It's actually making us so proud and standing up against the US and slapping the US and saying, whatever you say, this is our people. It's a small people like Vietnam did in the past. They're standing for us, and we're so proud of you. And I think this is something that brings people together and makes us say that we are making victories here. We're making victories there. This is our own victories, and I think it gets rid of this whole isolationist, the xenophobia, the divisions that those in the 1% are trying to instill in us. And so I think this is okay. I'm going to stop, but it's just I can talk forever about it. So yeah.
Thank you so much. It was a good sum up, actually, for our discussion. I don't see any other hands. Does anybody else want to just unmute yourself if you'd like to say something or add anything to the discussion here? Otherwise, we will be closing out. We're at about the end of our time frame anyway. So, okay, I don't see anybody. Any of the other speakers want to make any last comments?
No, just please join us. We would love to have any of you. The link to the website is there, which also has our socials. That would be super.
Okay.
And thank you for this opportunity. Wonderful group of people.
We're
Wonderful,
honored to have you.
inspirational, really inspirational. Thank you.
Okay. So Sheila,
you.
you have your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. I'm from a group called Pacifica Fight Back. I don't know if people here are familiar with Pacifica Radio. We have 5 stations around the country, and I know that Dr.
Rabab.
Rabab. Yeah.
Rabab is on the board of the KPFA local station board, and I'm wondering if you are encouraging people to become members of their local station so that they can vote in the upcoming elections. And by the way, in this election, the membership will only be $25. Next year, they're going to double it, of course. But do you have any comments about Pacifica Radio?
Yeah, I would like people to participate. I mean, definitely in San Francisco, please participate, because I have to tell you, our local board, and I'm not going to shy. There is a junta that controls the board, that is so reactionary, that is so right-wing, that keeps thinking that the Cold War is okay, keeps thinking we need to be neutral about Trump. Every time we say something, they come and shut us up. I mean, I have never seen anything so dictatorial and so terrible and so racist. We need more people to participate and help us kick these people out. I mean, I'm just telling you, it's so poisonous, so toxic to even be on that board. It's very, very, and it's me and there is another black woman who are on the board. They shut us up all the time. It's really terrible. We need you all to come in so we can do our role that we need to do as public radio stations. Thank
Yeah,
you
there
for
are 5 stations, by the way, and if
Yeah.
you want to vote in the upcoming election, you have to join
Yeah.
your local station. So, WBAI in New York, KPFT in Houston, terrible station, KPFK in Los Angeles, WPFW in Washington, very, very good station, and KPFA in Berkeley, San Francisco. So thank you, Dr. Abdulhadi.
Thank you, Sheila. You're always great when you come in and speak.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for participating. We appreciate your support, and we hope that we will see you at our future Zooms. We have the monthly, usually just for women monthly, but we also have these and when everyone is invited and welcome to participate. You can follow us on Instagram, WUAG.2025. And you can also write us email. I'll put it in the chat, info@womenunitedagainstgenocide.org. If you have any questions, suggestions for future speakers or topics that you'd like to see us cover. And we encourage everyone to participate in the discussion and join in that. That's part of what we're trying to create here, is a space for people to discuss the serious issues that we're all facing and contending with in this world. And to emphasize, as this Zoom did, that it's resistance that is what's decisive. It's showing the world, whether it's in Palestine or Lebanon and here in this country too, that the people are the ones that are going to decide the future, and the people are the ones that are going to build their own institutions and empower themselves to decide the problems facing us, whether it be water, whether it be war, whether it be environment, all of these crucial issues. So thank you once again.
Thank you, everybody.
For now.
FLOR, good job, sister. Thank you so much. That was very creative. The sum up that you did for it. So wonderful,
Yes,
sis.
we appreciate that. And FLOR, we love all those pictures of the May Day
Yes.
events around the country.
Yeah, that was very creative. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you, Sheila, for reminding us about our public stations. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, comrade. Have you heard what people say? Italy was burning all the time we were away. Lima and Nepal. In Berlin, they stopped the trains. They occupied the parliaments in Portugal and Spain, singing, there is only one solution, Intifada revolution. They're playing our song now. Oh, it can't be long now. Hello, comrade. Don't it strike you kind of strange? You're on the side of freedom, so they put you in a cage. But there will come a day when 100,000 sail, when all the world is with us. They can't fit us all in jail. So come on by the house and we can talk about it all.